The Mount Rushmore of Money in the Bank cash-ins. That's right. Everyone loves to cash in, don't they? And some of them have been better than others. Myself and NXT are in the hot seat, and we're going to give our top 4 choices of Money in the Bank cash-ins ever. NXT, welcome to the video. It's good to have you on board. And should we dive in with our first selection?
By all means, look, let's start off with the most obvious one. Seth Rollins, WrestleMania 31, the heist of the century. It is the greatest Money in the Bank cash-in, in my opinion. So I'm going to go with that one.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue with that one. I think that's on everybody's Mount Rushmore. Probably, like you say, it's going to be many people's top selection as well, of course. WrestleMania 31 was one of those shows when going into it, I think a lot of people were a bit lackluster about the idea of Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns, the main event for the championship. It's been, oh, here we go. We're going to have to sit and watch this, and Roman's going to have the crowning moment. And I think everyone just forgot on that show after Seth had taken probably the greatest RKO ever, that there was a possibility that a cash-in could happen during that main event. Not only did it rescue everybody involved, but it gave us the most shocking conclusion to a WrestleMania ever, and something that with Money in Bank that had been going on for a long time, people dared to dream that would happen at a WrestleMania, but it never happened before. So yeah, it got all the headlines that it wanted, and let's be honest, it made Seth for life.
Yeah, agreed. It was obviously his crowning moment, his first ever WWE Championship as well, and yeah, like I know I've seen so many podcasts or interviews or reviews where they just turn around and say how much this cash-in saved this pay-per-view, because like I've seen podcasts with people saying they were in attendance and it made it the best WrestleMania for them ever because of it. And like if you can change people's perception on the greatest WrestleMania just by one moment, dude, it's got to be kind of special, really.
Certainly has to be, indeed. And to be honest, yeah, spoiler alert, it's in my Mount Rushmore as well, just in case people were wondering. So yeah, that's the first one there. Do you want to dive in for the second choice?
Go for it.
I do think people need to go back and look where it all began, because when Money in the Bank first was made as a concept, obviously you climb the ladder, you grab the briefcase, you've got a championship match, and everyone just kind of assumed, okay, you can pick and call your shot, and it could be perhaps maybe a WrestleMania or Royal Rumble, random Monday Night Raw, and the superstar probably has to be fresh as well. They just call your shot ahead of time. That wasn't the case when we got to watch New Year's Revolution 2006. John Cena, the champion, had just gone through 5 superstars in an elimination chamber match, clearly vulnerable, clearly weak. Vince McMahon came out on the stage and announced that man was cashing in his Money in the Bank was none other than Edge at the time, who, let's be honest, I think blew everybody's mind at the start of 2006, beating John Cena in quick fashion and winning his first world championship. So for me, the first one, you always remember your first. I'm going with Edge with his cash in 2006.
It's one of my honorable mentions, and there's a specific reason why I haven't got it as one of my own Rushmores, because it is the first ever one. No one kind of anticipates exactly what the point of the briefcase is or how it works, and I don't feel it gets a big enough pop to justify the moment, which I think is probably the biggest criminal thing about it. Don't get me wrong, massive Edge fan, so glad he won it, but I just think that the moment in itself is ruined because I don't feel a lot of people realize that it could happen at any moment. And like I said, when Edge's music plays and you're like, even still, I've watched obviously a load of cash-ins recently trying to work out my Mount Rushmore, and the crowd reaction is kind of almost like half excited, half underwhelmed, because they just don't understand what's going on. And like I said, I think for me it gets an honorable mention, but I can't put it on my Mount Rushmore for that reason alone.
Totally understand that. I mean, for me, I was mind blown watching it play out in front of us, and for me, it just, you know, when you think to yourself, will Money in the Bank work? Because obviously, yes, there's a ladder match. Yes, there was multiple people win it and had a fantastic first ladder match at WrestleMania 21. But then the concept of the cash-in needs both things to work for it to continue to still be now going on 20 years later. It's officially 20 years old, Money in the Bank now, which is exciting to see. And I mean, the way that they cash in just changed the game completely, because all of a sudden anything can happen at any time. A champion, just if the moment they're vulnerable, someone will cash in, and it felt like that became a very common theme for most cash-ins we've seen over the years ever since. And like I say, you always remember your first, but I understand from a crowd perspective, on the night, on the moment, maybe there are some bigger pops out there. So NXT, I'll give you your second selection.
My number 2, Money in the Bank 2016, Roman Reigns versus Seth Rollins. Roman is defeated and loses to Seth Rollins only for Dean Ambrose to cash in and become the champion. The one night where all 3 members of the Shield were WWE champion. The pop is fantastic. Dean winning is fantastic. His reaction, where you can see he's still trying to play that crazy fringed lunatic bravado, but trying to hold back the tears because he is at the top of the game. He is WWE champion. It's a special moment, and just in general, being a massive Dean fan at the time, couldn't have wanted anything more. And I thought this was fantastic.
Yeah, it's a brilliant selection. To upset a few people, honorable mention from me. It's not made the cuts. I like the fact we have actually 2 different selections there, but this one just missed the cut. And like you said, I mean, 3 Shield members all champion in the same night. It's a historic moment in WWE. We never got that WrestleMania triple threat match, but hell, we got it at Battleground a month later. Yeah, I'm glad we got it at least. But like you say, it was a special pop, a special moment. And yeah, I mean, Dean Ambrose was someone that he was the last one of the Shield members to get that championship, and there was a couple of booking decisions at one point where you question if he'd ever get there. It just felt like it all culminated perfectly on the night. So yeah, I was happy to see Dean Ambrose get his moment.
Yeah, definitely, man. So like I said, it's a great moment, and number 2 on my list.
Certainly, indeed. Well, let's move on to our third then. I think we might share this one, but we'll have to wait and see if we do, because a lot of people say that Seth is the best one. A lot of people then say that the second best one, which is actually my personal favorite one, is the Raw after WrestleMania 2013. It's one Dolph Ziggler cashing in on Alberto Del Rio. The pop from the Raw after Mania crowd is exceptional. Let's be honest, you can't be surprised when the World Heavyweight Championship match the night before WrestleMania was Alberto Del Rio versus Jack Swagger. I don't think anyone in their right mind was overly excited for that match. So knowing that the conclusion of a WrestleMania weekend that someone's walking away the Raw after Mania as the World Heavyweight Champion was neither of those guys. It was Dolph Ziggler. And I think a lot of people would have loved to see him cash in at WrestleMania because it never would have been done at that point. But hey, a Raw after Mania certainly felt very special as well. And hey, those crowds are always mental anyway, but it just gave that sense that Raw after Mania was a place where shit happened. Anything was not off limits.
Look, it's not on my Mount Rushmore, and there is a reason for this. I was so disconnected from the product at the time that this doesn't have a fond memory in my head. Like, don't get me wrong, it's an honorable mention because you're right. You think about it, that crowd pop is possibly one of the best pops ever from a Money in the Bank cash in. But I just honestly, I don't remember. Like you said, Jack Swagger versus Del Rio. I have got no interest to be watching WWE at that point. It is just not my cup of tea. And Dolph Ziggler cashing in, like, again, not watching the product recently, probably didn't appreciate it at the time for what it was. I can go back now and look and be like, it's a very special moment. But yeah, it's not in my Mount Rushmore, unfortunately. It's just being disconnected from the product. I can't have it in my Mount Rushmore, unfortunately. But it is a great moment.
Do you know what? I mean, the thing is, this is what's great about these lists. They're all personal. And like you say, if you're not as connected to the product at that moment, fair play to you. So go and watch your third selection.
My third selection, this is probably the funniest cash-in ever, and it makes me laugh hysterically every time. It's SmackDown 2018. It's Carmella cashing in. I absolutely die with laughter every time because the ref is so good in this because he's like, are you sure you want to cash in? And she's screaming her head off at him to cash in. It's so funny. And then obviously she cashes in successfully. She wins and she becomes the new SmackDown Women's Champion. But anytime I watch it, Carmella just makes me die with laughter. And it's just one of them things that's ingrained in my brain. Like, if I think of a women's Money in the Bank cash-in, my brain instantly goes to Carmella.
Do you know, I love the selection because, I mean, the referee just completely plays and makes Carmella's character come out exceptionally. Where
for like a minute as well.
Yeah, it's a fun time moment. For me, it's not in my honorable mentions or in my top 4, but do you know what? I like that it's there, and like you say, it's certainly a good comedic moment nonetheless.
Definitely.
Well, my last selection then, and so far, a lot of them have been cashed in on vulnerable champions. I figured that the Money in the Bank, if you're going to cash in ahead of time, you need to do it on something that fits the character of that wrestler, fits the environment that cash-in is going to take place in, and there is none better, you're already doing it, than 2006 Mr. Rob Van Dam, RVD, winning Money in the Bank at WrestleMania 22, cashing in ECW One Night Stand. That's right, back in the ECW arena with John Cena in there. If Cena wins, we riot. I mean, the place, the electricity is just something very special, and like, I'm getting goosebumps just even talking about it. And RVD is like my favorite wrestler of all time as well, so look, I'm a bit biased on this, but the fact that he gets his crowning moment to win the WWE Championship as well, yeah, it's just incredible.
Yeah, it is. Honestly, it's a great moment. It's unfortunately an honorable mention for me, just because the fact that, look, the Money in the Bank is an opportunistic moment thing, and I always kind of found it dumb that, because there was so many people before that have gone like, oh, I'm challenging you, like Braun Strowman, John Cena, two people that famously have challenged for the title by just handing over the Money in the Bank briefcase instead of being opportunistic about it. This one, the Royal RVD one, is one of the few times where it does work successfully and it pays off. Like, again, I think it's a great moment, but I just think like it's just more of a fact that it's always more of an opportunistic thing that I haven't put this in my Mount Rushmore.
Totally understand that. And for me, I would usually 100% agree with you, but I just think with RVD, and it's going to be hard to find that where it fits that environment as well, because ECW is complete opposite of what John Cena was. It's completely everything that RVD had gone through the mid to late 90s until ECW was bought out in 2001. So yeah, it's something that I think it'll be hard to replicate, but certainly I think it worked rather well.
I agree. On to my final pick now. A list of, like, I still have two names here, and I was kind of umming and ahhing, and I'm sitting there thinking, like, no, I'm going to go with this one just because this was one I think a lot of people had waited years for. Money in the Bank 2022. Liv Morgan cashes in on Ronda Rousey, strangely enough, and someone that the fans had wanted to be a star and to win a title for ages, and finally got her flowers. Don't get me wrong, the run isn't great afterwards because of how she was booked, but just the fact that crowd wants her to win that Money in the Bank briefcase, and I just think it's a great moment. And do you know what I mean? It just cements her as one of the, it was the beginning of her being cemented as a top star for WWE with that one.
Love that selection there, and yeah, that is my top female cash-in of all time. And like you say, it's just very special with Liv Morgan's cash-in as well in 2022. I'm glad that you've mentioned it because it's an honorable mention of mine as well, and I'm glad that it limits the one or two that I have left, so I don't have to mention so many more. But yeah, I mean, this and Dean Ambrose were very tight and very close on getting into the top four. They're just very special. And like you say, the championship run isn't as special afterwards, but yeah, I mean, like you say, this is the stepping stone and the beginning stages of what we get for Liv Morgan becoming what she is today, which is one of the top stars in the women's division.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's not till her second time around as champion where she kind of really does cement her place. But again, I think it was more to opponent booking at the time when she first wins this title, but everyone wanted her. She was top baby, she was on the verge of being top baby face, and then just to cash in with that briefcase again on the same day, which two of my picks are on the same day, which is kind of trash really, because no one likes it when they cash in the same day, but it's the moment, man. Like I said, Dean and both Liv are massive fan favorites that people wanted to see at the top, and they finally did it.
Absolutely, indeed. And the bank, if you're going to get your moments with your favourites win the big one, you should enjoy it wherever it's going to take place and however it's done. And do you have any other honourable mentions that you'd like to give us?
I have one more honourable mention, and it was Damian Priest from WrestleMania 41, another person that was, do you know what I mean, on the precipice of being a main event star. And I think the only reason why I probably haven't put this one on my Mount Rushmore is it's the opening match of WrestleMania, and I think CM Punk slightly takes away some of the focus of Damian Priest winning this one. Although I still think it's a great moment, and like I said, he gets his moment as champion. At the top of the ramp, you see all the Judgment Day. I mean, they've got tag team titles, they've got world titles. It's like a great moment for them in general.
Yeah, Damian Priest is one of my honorable mentions as well. Like you say, WrestleMania. But for me, it fit everything perfectly because Drew's character at the time as well, wanting that big moment of WrestleMania, but then too much of his ego gets in his own way that Punk gets involved, and all of a sudden he's vulnerable, would be cashed in on. It's just a moment that shouldn't happen, but then did happen. And of course, to have another cash in at WrestleMania, look, they're always going to be special, however many of them WWE decides to do. But of course, only the second ever one, so certainly is definitely one of those special what would you want to say? Honorable mentions definitely to be given. Look, I'm going to mention Alexa Bliss quickly. Obviously, the killer match that was done with Ronda Rousey and Nia Jax in 2018 that was interrupted, and she got involved as well. It was another one done on the same night, winning her 5th women's championship, but certainly with a big pop from the Chicago crowd. They were very much into the idea of Bliss winning the title once again. I think as well the idea that perhaps Ronda was being quickly thrust into that championship scene, I think, was a bit too quick for people's liking, although she was impressing at that point with what she was doing. Certainly, I think it was just the right move all around with Bliss winning. And I'll give one more for you. CM Punk in 2009 on Jeff Hardy, because at the time, Jeff Hardy was the massive fan favorite. I think he just beat Edge. I want to say it was like a TLC match, something like that, Extreme Rules. And CM Punk then at that moment cashed in on a fan favorite, which actually led to then doing the exact same thing that Punk did a year before on Edge, which of course, Edge being a heel, people loved it. He said, why do you all hate me for doing it on Jeff Hardy? It's the same thing I did last year. And it transitioned Punk into a heel character as well, and gave us a big feud over the summer of Jeff Hardy, CM Punk, which even culminated in the TLC match main event in SummerSlam.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, you could even add his first one to that, just because the fact that CM Punk was that ECW guy that was like kind of just quietly making a name for himself and then winning the Money in the Bank briefcase is just like itself. For him, almost seems like, I don't know, maybe people were almost sleeping on him at the time to be a main event star, but do you know what I mean? It works out for him in the end, and he becomes like a multi-time WWE champion.
Certainly, indeed. A bit of extra bonus content for everybody, because I don't know when we get the opportunity to talk about something like this unless it ever ends up being a rewind. But since it's on a random SmackDown, I don't know how this kind of works out for us to happen. But do you remember back in 2007 when Mr. Kennedy won Money in the Bank? And of course, he was doing the countdown. He was going to cash in at WrestleMania a year later. Then he was injured. He was expected to be out for a long time. But then with scans, when he got to Alabama, it realized that he was only going to be out for a few weeks. But at this point, the decision had already been made that he had to lose the briefcase because they needed to cash it in, because the Undertaker had got injured on SmackDown. So what they did was Edge beat Kennedy for the briefcase on Raw. Then Undertaker had won a championship match on SmackDown, but then took a beatdown after the match. Edge then went down and cashed in, which was a huge shocking moment at that point, because you had the brand split as well. It meant Edge changed shows to SmackDown as well. But for Mr. Kennedy, poor guy, obviously was expected to be someone that was going to be, winning and becoming a world champion. And all of a sudden, a misdiagnosed injury, which wasn't as bad as first feared, ends up losing the opportunity of becoming a world champion. And sadly, it's one of WWE's biggest what ifs.
Yeah, it's ultimately one of them, and it's a shame, because you would imagine, like, you'd like to. I'm sure we've had this discussion before about what his career path and what his trajectory would have been if he'd have actually retained that briefcase and he'd actually gone on to cash in, because being a WWE champion, a guy that was not necessarily fondly remembered for his in-ring work, but his character work was great, and his entrance alone very unique, and don't think we've ever seen anything similar to it. Like, having the whole microphone come down, doing his own entrance, it was special, man. And like, you imagine if you put a WWE championship around his waist as well, it would have been a license to print money almost in terms of merch and stuff like that with Mr. Kennedy. So it's a shame, but unfortunately it happens, and it was a shame that he never got the opportunity to do it maybe the following year or whatever. So it's just one of them things, unfortunately, that Vince McMahon got his grubby little hands over on.
Unfortunately, yeah, and obviously it was meant to be Mr. McMahon's illegitimate son as well, and that turned out to be Hornswoggle in the end. So very bad case of bad luck for Mr. Kennedy, and sadly never worked out. But certainly another one of those big shocking Money in the Bank cash-ins. Edge was famous for them, and what made him the ultimate opportunist back in the mid-noughties. But there's some bonus content there for you there. Go on.
Yeah, I was going to say, no, just Edge is one of those guys that almost is associated with sort of a lot of like important moments, like I said, Money in the Bank cash-ins, winning a Money in the Bank briefcase off of someone else. He always seems to be in or around like the scene when something like that happens.
Certainly, indeed. Well, we've talked about many of the Money in the Bank cash-ins over the years, and a lot of top ones there and that. So I think we should just remind everybody Mount Rushmore. So go for your 4 names quickly for us.
So my 4 were Seth Rollins from WrestleMania 31, Dean Ambrose from Money in the Bank 2016, Carmella from SmackDown 2018, and Liv Morgan from Money in the Bank 2022.
Superb indeed. My selections then for you are Seth Rollins WrestleMania 31, the heist of the century. Edge, the inaugural Money in the Bank cash in on John Cena at New Year's Revolution 2006. We've got Dolph Ziggler in 2013, the Raw After Mania on Alberto Del Rio, and RVD cashing in on John Cena ECW One Night Stand 2006. But that's our Mount Rushmore. Let us know your Mount Rushmore in the comments below. If you've enjoyed the video, hit the like button, share wherever, and subscribe as well. Big thank you to the man next to me, NXT, as well, for being part of this series as always. Any final words?
No, mate, just looking forward to Money in the Bank this weekend.
Bring it on, indeed. If you've not checked out our predictions, you can do so now in the selection down here, just beneath your screen. And you can check out the rest of the Mount Rushmore series as well. Thanks for watching this video. Look after yourselves and each other, and we'll see you for the next one. Take care.